It's funny. We spend our entire lives trapped inside our own heads, listening to this constant internal monologue. We read a book or we listen to a conversation like this one, and it just feels seamless, instant.
It feels like magic.
Exactly, like the words just appear, fully formed. But if you actually stop and think about what is physically happening inside your skull, it's absolute chaos.
It's biology, chemistry, and mostly, it's electricity.
And usually when people talk about mind reading, they're talking about, sci-fi or a guy in a sparkly jacket.
Yeah, guessing your card.
But today, we're talking about something real, something that's happening in labs right now.
And just to be super clear, we aren't talking about, like, downloading your memories. We're talking about measuring the actual electrical footprint of a thought as it forms.
You can see the shape of comprehension.
You really can.
That is the mission for this deep dive. We were unpacking a real heavy hitter of a source today. It's electromagnetic measures of brain activity in psycholinguistic processing.
It's chapter 17 from the Handbook of Psycholinguistics. A dense title, I admit.
Not exactly light beach reading, no.
Definitely not.
But the content is incredible. We're going to look at the timeline of the brain, not just where language happens, but when. We're going to slow everything down and look at what happens in your head, millisecond by millisecond.
From the moment a word hits your eye to the second you understand it, it's like a symphony of electrical spikes.
So before we can track this journey, we need to understand the tools. How do we actually, hear a thought?
Well, you have to remember that the brain runs on currency. Literally, it runs on current flow.
Oh.
When your neurons communicate, when you think, I'm hungry, or that's blue, charged ions are moving across cell membranes.
So a thought is a physical movement of ions.
Precisely. It creates a tiny dipole, a little separation of charge, and that movement creates a voltage.
But it must be tiny.
Oh, minuscule.
Yeah.
When neuron firing, you'd never detect it. But when thousands of neurons fire together in sync, which happens when they process something,
Then you get a signal.
then you get a signal strong enough to be detected right outside the skull.
And that's the EEG, the cap with all the wires.
That's the one, the electroencephalogram. You place electrodes on the scalp to record those voltage fluctuations. But there's a major hurdle.
The skull.
The skull. It's a thick, bony insulator. So by the time that electrical signal reaches the scalp, it's been smeared out.
Okay, so it's blurry.
Very blurry. It's like you're trying to listen to a specific conversation at a party, but you're standing outside the house with your ear against a brick wall.
You can hear the noise, the rhythm, maybe some laughter.
Yeah.
You can't make out the crisp detail.
Exactly. And to make things worse, your brain is never quiet. You're thinking about your posture, the room temperature. That's all noise in the data.
So if I'm a researcher and I want to see how your brain reacts to the word apple, how do I separate that apple signal from the, my nose itches signal?
You use a technique called averaging, and this is crucial. You don't just show the word apple once.
You show it a bunch of times.
A bunch of times. 50, maybe 100 times.
And you just assume the nose itch is random.
Right. The background noise is random. It cancels itself out. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. But the brain's reaction to apple is consistent. So when you average those 100 trials, the noise flatlines and the signal, what we call the event-related potential, or ERP, it just pops out.
Like sculpting. You're chipping away the noise to see the shape underneath.
That's a great way to put it.
The source also mentions MEG. Is that just a fancier EEG?
It's the rich cousin, basically. Yeah. Magnetoencephalography. It measures the magnetic fields generated by that electricity.
And the big advantage is?
Magnetic fields pass through the skull like it's not even there.
No smearing.
Zero smearing. So MEG is much, much better at telling us where in the brain something is happening. But the machines are incredibly expensive. So most of what we know about the timing, the when, still comes from the good old electrical EEG.
Okay, so we're strapped in, electrodes on. Let's run the simulation. A word pucks up on a screen. Let's say table. What's the very first thing my brain does?
For the first 100 milliseconds, a tenth of a second, your brain doesn't even know it's a word. It just sees visual complexity.
Lines, contrast, shapes. It's just light.
It's just light. But then around 150 milliseconds, we see the first major landmark, the N170. It's a negative spike where the brain suddenly goes, aha, this isn't a face, this isn't a tool, this is a string of letters.
So at 150 milliseconds, it's been categorized as text.
Yes. And by 200 milliseconds, it's already analyzing spelling patterns. And this is where the source has this really clever experiment with pseudo words.
I love this. These are the fake words that could be real, right? Like bleem.
Bleem or glarp. They follow the rules. Compare that to a string like XGLPF.
A password mash. Violates every rule.
Exactly. What they found is that in those first few hundred milliseconds, the brain treats BLEEM almost exactly the same as table.
It gets fooled.
It's not so much fooled as it is optimistic. It sees the letter pattern, recognizes it as legal, and basically says, this looks valid, let's try to process it.
Right.
It gives BLEEM the benefit of the doubt.
But with the unpronounceable string.
It rejects it instantly, doesn't waste the energy. It shows how efficient our reading system is. It filters out the obvious junk, but passes plausible stuff up the chain.
Okay, so BLEEM made it past the bouncer. It's inside the club. But now the brain has to figure out, wait, what is a BLEEM?
And this brings us to what the source calls the star of the show.
The main event.
The main event, the N400.
The N400. This is famous, right?
Oh, it's legendary in psycholinguistics. If you take away just one thing from this deep dive, remember the N400. It's a negative brainwave that peaks about 400 milliseconds after you see something potentially meaningful.
And that's the meaning wave. The moment of comprehension.
Well, it's the moment the search for comprehension happens. Think of the N400 as a measure of effort. It's the sound of your brain rummaging through its mental filing cabinet.
So if the word is easy to find, the N400 is small.
Exactly. If I say, I take my coffee with cream and the next word is sugar.
Easy. I expected it.
Your brain barely breaks a sweat. Tiny N400. But what if I say, I take my coffee with cream and socks?
Okay, socks. That's a collision. My brain just hit a wall.
A massive N400. Your brain sees socks and it scrambles. It tries to force a fit. Is this a metaphor? Is this a code? That huge processing load creates a huge electrical spike.
It's interesting that it's all about expectation. Because the source says it's not just for nonsense. It's about predictability.
Right. Closed probability. It's just a fancy term for how likely is this word right here.
So if I say I went to the zoo to see the...
Monkey or lion would have a very small N400. But if you said, I went to the zoo to see the squirrel.
Which is technically possible. There are squirrels at the zoo.
It's a valid sentence. It's not nonsense like socks. But because squirrel is so unexpected in that context, you still get a larger N400. The brain is surprised. It has to work harder to integrate it.
This implies the brain is actively building a scene, not just looking up words.
It is. And there was this one study in the source that really blew my mind, the pizza experiment.
Oh, this is a classic.
It really is. It answers the question. Do we look up words individually, or do we activate, like, whole families of concepts?
So they gave people the sentence, the pizza was too hot to...
And the expected word is eat.
Eat. Small N400. Then they tried. The pizza was too hot to cry.
Obviously wrong. Huge N400. But then, and this is the genius part, they tried. The pizza was too hot to drink.
Now, drink is wrong. You don't drink pizza.
Unless you've made some terrible life choices, yes, it's a violation. But here's the twist. The N400 for drink was way smaller than the N400 for cry.
But why? They're both wrong.
Because drink shares a semantic neighborhood with eat. They're both about consuming something. They're related to food.
So the brain gives drink partial credit.
Exactly. It proves that when you expect eat, you're not just activating EAT, you're activating a whole network of related concepts. Consuming, swallowing, tasting food, drink lands in that network. Cry is way outside it.
That is wild. Our thoughts are fuzzier than we realize. Not bullet points, but clouds of meaning.
For sure. And the source mentions that concrete words like table or spoon trigger different patterns than abstract words like justice.
Because you can picture a spoon.
Likely, yes. Concrete words seem to engage visual memory systems almost instantly. Justice is a heavier cognitive lift.
Okay, I want to pivot to what I think is the most unsettling part of this. We've been talking about the brain reacting, but the source suggests the brain is actually psychic.
The prediction versus integration debate.
Right. Does the brain wait for me to finish, or is it guessing what I'm going to say before I say it?
The evidence here leans heavily toward the psychic theory. We are relentless prediction machines.
And the proof is in the A versus and study, which sounds like a boring grammar lesson, but the implications are huge.
It's so elegant. We all know the rule. A before a consonant, a kite. A-N before a vowel, an airplane.
Plane.
So researchers set up a context where you're 100% expecting a specific noun. The wind was blowing, so the boy went out to fly.
Kite. My brain is screaming kite.
Right, and because you expect kite, you expect the article A. But on the screen, the researchers flash the word A-N.
The boy went out to fly A-N.
Now stop. You haven't seen the noun yet. Only A-N. But the electrical recordings showed that the brain freaked out immediately.
It spiked on the word A-N.
Yes.
Yeah.
The N400. The brain detected a mismatch before the noun even arrived.
That is terrifyingly fast. It means my brain has already preloaded kite, realized kite starts with a consonant, checked the grammar, and flagged an error all before I finish reading AN.
Exactly. You are living in the future. You're milliseconds ahead of the reality you're perceiving.
Wow.
You aren't just listening to me. You're constructing a shadow version of my sentence in your head and constantly checking if I match it.
Which is why it's so jarring when someone stops mid-sentence.
Yes. And this happens in spoken language, too, with something called the isolation point. If I start saying a word, can't...
My brain is already pulling up candy, candle, Canada.
And if the context is, the birthday cake needs A, your brain locks onto candle before I even hit the D sound. We process meaning continuously.
So we're impatient optimists who think we know the future.
That explains a lot, doesn't it?
It really does. Let's zoom out a bit. We've been talking about single sentences. But what about the bigger picture, like a story?
Oh, context is king. The N400 is sensitive to the entire discourse. The source gives a great example with the words quick and slow.
Right. He was quick, he was slow. Both are fine sentences.
In isolation, yes. But imagine a story where a character wakes up late, rushes to the car, and speeds to work. And then the next sentence is, he was slow.
My brain goes, objection.
Even though the sentence is grammatically perfect, your brain triggers a conflict N400. It doesn't fit the plot.
So the error isn't in the dictionary, it's in the narrative we've built.
Precisely. And this is fundamental to humor. A joke is basically a prediction error that we enjoy.
The setup leads you one way, the punchline yanks you another.
That yank is what we call frame shifting. You have to discard your prediction and rapidly reinterpret everything. And the source suggests the right hemisphere might be the hero here.
The creative side.
It seems better at integrating those surprise connections. In fact, people who are good at getting jokes show a specific electrical response, a late positivity. It's basically the brain's signature for, aha, I get it.
A laugh track of the mind.
And metaphors are similar. Those fighters are lions.
Literally false.
Right. But your brain knows it's not a lie. However, metaphors do trigger a larger N400 than literal statements. The brain has to work harder to map the features of lion courage, ferocity onto fighter, while suppressing fur and tail.
So poetry is literally a workout for the brain.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, we've talked a lot about meaning, semantics. What about the rules? The grammar. Does the brain have a grammar police separate from the meaning department?
It does, and they have their own sirens. While meaning issues give us the N400, grammar violations trigger two different waves, the LAN and the P600.
LAN, like a computer network.
Left anterior negativity. It happens early in the front left brain for basic errors. Like if I said, he mows the lawn versus he mows the lawn.
Ugh, that just sounds wrong.
That visceral, that's probably the LAN. But the really interesting one is the P600. This is a positive spike that happens later, around 600 milliseconds. We call it the repair signal.
Repair, it's fixing the sentence.
Exactly. The P600 pops up when the brain hits a structural dead end and has to reanalyze the syntax. It's famous for appearing in garden path sentences.
Oh, the verbal traps. I love those.
Right. The classic example, the broker persuaded to sell the stock.
Okay, I'm picturing a broker. He's persuading someone.
Was sent to jail.
Oh, wait.
Exactly. You hit a wall. You thought the broker was the one doing the persuading, but now you realize he was the one being persuaded.
So I have to mentally stop, rewind, and rediagram the whole thing.
That mental U-turn, that generates a massive P600. It's the brain saying, hold on, that structure is broken. Let me reassemble it.
It's fascinating that we have these separate systems. One for, what does this mean? The N400. And one for, does this follow the rules? The P600. Do they ever talk to each other?
That is the million-dollar question in the field. Are they totally separate modules, or do they interact?
And what does the data say?
It says it's complicated. They definitely interact. But the source discusses what they call double violations, sentences that are both grammatically broken and date total nonsense.
It's a train wreck of a sentence.
You'd expect the brain to just explode with signals, a big N400 plus a big P600. But often, the patterns get messy. It's like the system gets overwhelmed and can only prioritize one crisis at a time.
System overload. Rebooting.
Effectively, yeah.
So let's recap the map. We see a word. 150 meters, visual recognition. 200 meters, letter patterns. 400 meters, access meaning, check it against predictions. 600 meters, check grammar, repair if needed.
And this happens for every single word you read, 3-4 times a second.
It's humbling. But before we close out, the source material ends on a bit of a skeptical note, a critique of this whole field.
It's a very valid critique. Think about all the examples we just used. He mowed the lawn, coffee with socks.
They're all errors, all tricks.
Exactly. Almost everything we know about how the brain processes language comes from studying what happens when it fails. We study the N400 by breaking meaning. We study the P600 by breaking grammar.
It's like trying to understand how a car engine works by listening to the noise it makes when you hit it with a hammer.
That is the perfect analogy. We have a very detailed map of the brain's error handling systems, but we know significantly less about what the brain looks like when it's processing perfect, beautiful, well-crafted language.
Because when it works perfectly, it's seamless, it's quiet.
Exactly. The perfect signal is harder to isolate because there's no massive spike of effort or repair. The next frontier is to understand the brain when it's dancing, not just when it's tripping over its own feet.
That's a beautiful thought. We know the struggle, but we don't quite know the flow.
Not yet, but we're getting there.
Well, there's your homework, listener. The next time you're reading or listening to a podcast, maybe this one, try to catch yourself. Try to feel that split-second prediction before the word arrives. See if you can catch your own brain living in the future.
It's harder than it sounds.
It really is. Thanks for taking this deep dive into the electric brain with us.
Always a pleasure.
See you next time.